What time?
Yep.
It's that we're gonna reconvene at 7 p.m., which means it is so late.
What are you doing tomorrow?
How much we're playing Fizzy
I'm getting ready.
today?
I'm going down to Brooklyn for a job interview.
We have
How you doing,
time
Rob?
in the morning to do an interview.
Okay.
What are you doing this weekend?
Like, I'm doing a lot of laundry and some homework.
Okay, because I gotta leave right now.
Probably
Yeah.
laundry.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
tonight.
you just want a briefing of what happened to the rest of the
Yeah.
meeting.
But I don't want to
Probably
wait
do
till
that.
next Tuesday.
Alright.
Yeah.
It's only time to do $1.99 laundry.
When is that?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Really? Where?
City.
It's 2 days. It's that cheap.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
Like $250
like,
or
So, wait, what was
campus
it?
I have a meeting
Is that doesn't that's squash, right? What about dry?
Dude, like, yes.
I appreciate you staying
I
late.
can go to Ingelmarm. I'm a woman.
Do your job.
No, you can't. The president of the Ingemar is a woman.
I know, I'm joking. I'm joking. Right. There's also not a party there with robes and candles and a cult and marshmallows. It's a joke, running joke. Ha ha.
Well, yeah, there is. You would know
Not
that.
that I'm invited to.
Well, I was invited last time they had.
I remember that picture
Why am I ever invited to that shit?
Patrick and I have this.
Because I'm a woman. I know. There you go. Damn.
Congratulations
Thank you.
on your award.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I saw that too. It was good.
So there's no
It was
more
a nice speech.
opportunity
That was about
for-
one of the nicest speeches I've ever heard anybody give anybody.
I'm.
I wasn't
almost
sure,
said
but I
Like
hear about it.
8 like amazing quotes. She called you like a guru and a bunch of other super
that.
nice things.
That speech almost made me cry.
Yeah.
And it's totally true. We just good about like one of the first things I ever said. Yeah, we kind of
Can't make you do that.
first year.
It's funny.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, we did not get along my first year. Oh, what's the word? I'm missing words. How are you holding up? Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel bad for all these.
For these.
Yeah, for these guys over
It's
here.
supposed to be the QSC meeting right now.
Oh, well, I hope they understand. I hope that this will turn out well.
Yeah.
What did you say? QD?
QSU? The Queer Student Union?
Queer SU.
Yes.
That's what I missed.
My favorite is when I say Queer Student Union, they're like, the Christian Union, huh?
They're like, not quite. Did you email them or text them or something to let them know?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You guys going to Pint Night tonight?
My Everett's supposed to be a nice boyfriend here.
I'm supposed to have a chem exam tomorrow. I have done zero studying. He's trying to fit in, not trying, he is. He's fitting in one more to help people out
Yeah.
in hopes that if they get all the little ones, then the final they won't have to stress over.
Yeah.
I'm stressing over all of them though, of course, because I miss so much freaking class. I'm just wondering, like,
Alright.
so Keith, is there... Your tag is up.
Put me back. Is there what?
There's no more room for public comment? Obviously.
Well, we can address public comment. We're going to address all the complaints that have been made.
Okay. Okay.
Isn't that a pee?
Oh, I peed.
Oh.
I got a decatheter in.
I'm Nikki.
Sophia.
Thanks.
We're supposed to share a room together.
Okay.
You were offended by that
I
comment
need to
I
get my
made
brother.
at Stanford.
Okay.
No, not at all. No, absolutely not.
I'm
So it's like you didn't have to solve that.
No, it's fine.
I guess having like a 3.86 GPA and multiple
You gonna be in the Tavola Gardens next year too? Next
multiple
semester?
things
Yeah,
coming up is
I love that part.
as
Yeah.
much as
Well, I
passing
love
out
it
condoms
because
and
of its
stuff.
location.
Yeah, I just wish we had a patio.
Yeah. It'd be nice if we could grow plants.
By the way,
but
Tiffany's never
can't be
received a letter
approved.
back.
This will be my last month there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the summer and then, well actually I might come back and live with my roommate, or my next door neighbor.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
you
I
were.
I was, but no, it was just a
Number
general
9.
because she was explaining for you should know. But she's never received a letter from more job recommendation.
This will be in the lumberjack probably like next week or something.
Boyfriend, I mean,
Maybe.
there's not like,
I should know too.
I should, but you know, the semester's not over yet. Right, and like, and you know,
if you'd asked that of me, she would.
But,
Well, she thought it was kind of funny and kind of wished she could.
yeah, hopefully it'll be an issue on
But
Sunday.
so do I. She didn't. I wish I could. But you know, I didn't either. So,
I like
but
that.
yeah,
You should say that.
I mean, that didn't actually happen. So.
I'll remember it. Maybe
Well,
I'll use it.
I guess that would be some
This is the new journal.
situation.
You what?
I said, I guess that retains some, that like gives a
Yeah,
little
I'm
bit
like
more
dying.
integrity.
I guess my biggest.
Did you see that before I called you, Jason?
You know, it's just
Um,
that, like.
Well, I got a call from my friend Shannon, whose comment I read earlier, and she got one of those, early bird ones. They put them like the day before, so that was pretty cool.
Because some of those emails that went out.
Oh no, like I don't think he went into a lot of points.
Well, I
Like,
didn't
that
get
I
a
think
lot
should
of
have been
the-
necessary
I-
instead of like more details on myself.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
short. It's just like a.
Honestly,
But yeah, I thought like one of the things that's crucial is like, you know, I wasn't the first one to complain about this whole deal.
we don't know
But it's like, you know, you. But I
Oh, he
didn't.
didn't even say that, did he?
Yeah, he didn't say anything about that. So I don't know, but I mean, it's kind of like parliamentary procedure, right of personal privilege. He's already talked about me, so I should be able to write an editorial and speak it up, or put in my own points that I think are relevant. So we'll see what happens with it. I think they gotta be in by like Monday or something.
you know what I mean? And that's just reality. You know, once somebody who's going to be able to focus.
I know, and I probably did. I shouldn't have said that to Carrie, but I mean.
Oh no, I read it.
I just.
Cool.
You know, like,
You also did know the same.
Mission.
I was in that week as well.
Puffin-
So there's a lot
puffin
of things
poisonous
that
nicotine, man.
I should have said, but I had also had never.
You still have your boots on?
You know, public
Yeah,
results
staying
like
back
that,
from work.
public forum,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
My last day.
Right prior to the day.
I work for
So-
California Department of Fish and Game.
So my state of mind is not also the best judgment. I just wanted to.
Not anymore though.
thank you.
Today's my last day.
I don't know.
That was
I
kind
don't
of
think that
sad.
that's for me. That's not.
I know you don't think it's a valid.
I know. I don't.
And that's fine, but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
my
you're
opinion.
gonna have situations like that too. But then you, I mean, and then you actually, like honestly, before, like when I wasn't on it and I was
I've been
doing that too.
part of AS before. I've been part of situations before. I've been made to blow my
You just get a fire hydrant.
I have. And I'm not going to No, you know, I kind of always,
Hopefully we'll have time
and
for.
maybe I'm just unique, but I always fluctuate.
Oh yeah, that's
We'll buy some beer.
Maybe
We're not rushing anything through.
I got my
My
kid.
dad has always been.
I brought some tea. I just feel like jumping. One of the first things you did ready to.
Oh, how are you doing?
I don't know, I guess
Oh my god. Oh, I was like, oh my god. I should not be fucking with this guy right now. I'm so used to this. Like, I just told him I was paying every
And I totally understand. I mean, there's that vibe, you know, I read into a lot too of like, people are all friends now. I work really hard to say that.
so like his nails are all like.
On the professional side, I just told them what they can and can't do, but
Chancellor.
Oh, that's right. People are like,
Yeah, it's always the known thing is never shake his hand. Oh, I used to do it like.
that's my
elbows.
recommendation.
He's like, how are you doing, Chancellor? And I'm like, I'm
It is
good.
tricky and I, you know,
The whole McCain thing.
but, you know,
Yeah, I just did it too.
like, I also
really cared that
Look at his hand. Ugh.
and that's also
I don't want it.
Yeah, well, I did, because like the very first time I did that whole, wow, like, you know, look at it, like, I did really, like, you know, pointed out my face, I was like, ugh.
But I mean, that's fine. If you feel like I overstep my bounds, I totally
You would
respect
think
that.
it
I
has
just
that
on the
much
flip
money.
side, the things, the email that you got in which
Laughing time is
the
like,
activity was on, there were multiple incorrect. So actually, most of that email was incorrect and
So are you
misquoted.
gonna be around next month?
Well, then I appreciate
You're graduating, but.
clearing that out.
I tried to hide it. I tried to avoid doing it, but as soon as I heard it, I had to just be like, dude, darling. Okay.
No, I definitely appreciate it.
I've never tried to hide it.
Oh, nice.
You're going on tour. Give me a call, you jugglers, clowns, I'll get whatever you need, man.
The reason I said you shouldn't be laughing was that maybe on my mind.
I'm not gonna blame you, but it's your fault.
Okay, does he drive, like, he drives a BMW.
I have no idea.
Hey,
I swear I
can
think
you go see
he's
what
like
Rob
with
is?
a few hundred Beamers, and that's why we have that. I get
Definitely do this program
I didn't mean.
in which accidentally had vehicles across the state of California, and our president was selected as one of them. And that's what paid for the hydrogen fueling station. So like the state paid for that and everything.
So what's up, Mellow? Is that a nickname or what?
It says,
Mellow is that a
shoe
nickname?
size 11-ish.
Oh, you can totally feel it.
Oh,
height 6'6".
I've always been looking at the reason of the
I'm trying to email a guy.
Why have you ever seen
It's that first part around $100,000
I work for California Department of Education.
What size shoe are you if you don't?
What if you were over my office?
They have to graduation gas, $4 a gallon.
I guess with the amount
We work with we are friends a lot.
Yeah, well, we're the archaeology aspect of it.
nice
So we
thing
we
is
did like
there's
$1.5 million contract to go out and do sites.
See, so
The only time I ever dealt with that is
is,
we were looking at basic species on Indian Island.
Oh, yeah.
And,
It's not enough.
we had to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. It's a real scary thing.
What they do is they
Real skills there, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm more than sure you would have
they're
done that.
catalysts, and they lose about 60 to 78% of the energy.
No, okay. I'm here for like 11 hours.
Alright, calling this meeting back to order at 7:58 according to my watch. Alright, so now we're at the point where the first thing we will address are the points that Jason brought up as far as Tyler being biased. I will hand the floor over to Tyler, and Tyler, please address what, not any personal feelings, but only what Jason has set forth, and refute those as best you can if possible.
Thank you. First, I want it to be known here to everyone that throughout my 25 years of life, I've always striven to be a person of integrity and a person of honesty. It's very important to me. And so to hear these allegations, even from Jason Robo, disturbs me. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and looking back and analyzing myself, trying to look at it out of the box impartially. But I do not feel that there's a conflict of interest, and I have the specific things that Jason has brought up, and I'm going to address them right now. The first piece that he talks about is my involvement in his impeachment and how that is a conflict of interest with my position here. First off, Jason has been saying over and over again that I was the primary author of his articles of impeachment, and that is wrong. I, in collaboration with 6 to 7 other members of council, drafted the articles of impeachment with Ryan Guy. We moved to impeachment trial. Amendments were made to the articles of impeachment by the body, and it was passed by the body. So to say that I was the principal author of this document is completely false. It is an Associated Students government document that stands, and if it was untrue or unbiased, it wouldn't have gotten passed. Second, the hearing that Jason keeps referring to over and over again in my impartiality. First, let this be said that I've received letters from Jason's lawyer. I've been instructed that I am not allowed to discuss any specific parts of his testimony until Jason, if he ever decides to, sign a waiver so people who are involved can discuss. But what I will tell everyone here is that one day I was in the office and I saw something happen, and I heard Jason Robo say something. And myself, along with several other members of council, were sent an email from Student Affairs they were investigating an incident that happened surrounding Jason Robo. I was asked to tell the truth about something I heard, and I told the truth. I'm sorry if that doesn't go with what Jason wanted to happen, but I'm a person of integrity, and I will always tell the truth, even if it's about a personal friend. And so, if people here want me to tell a lie, to be unbiased, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. 3, Elections Commission. I was appointed to the Elections Commission on February 27th. Packets were available for all positions on March 21st. I did not know that Jason Robo was running for president when I was appointed to the Elections Commission. Maybe if I did, or maybe if it was known that he was running before then, maybe something could be construed, but it's not the case. I joined the Elections Commission. Me, on top of everyone else here, we're graduating seniors. I've been through the AS process before. I was appointed, and then I ran, and I've been through, I think I'm one of the longest running members of AS right now. And I wanted to give my expertise, the things that I've learned throughout my years here, and that's why I joined. I had no idea that Jason Robo was running for president, or anyone else. Relationship with Terra Rentz and Joan Tyson and other people associated, I'm not even going to really address this. These people are my friends. I respect them very much. I'm proud to be their friend. And if that makes me biased, then I'm sorry. Another thing Jason has said, actually this is probably more of a personal thing, so I'll get that out.
Yes.
But that's it. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I do not feel I've been biased. It is the burden of proof lies with the accuser. So if Jason still feels that I'm biased, he can go with it however he would like to. But I feel that I'm unbiased and I'm impartial to this entire process. Oh, one other thing about the elections. Yes, it was my motion. It was seconded by Stephen Diamond. And it was discussed and it was unanimously passed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members. So to say that it was strictly my motion and my plan is wrong. If it was a plan that people didn't agree with, they wouldn't have voted for it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Steve?
Yeah, notwithstanding all of that, I see an error in calling what is he accusing you of? Conflict of interest. I see error in calling a conflict of interest at the end of the process after votes have been ruled against a candidate and not during every other part of the process. If there was an issue with the person on the Elections Commission, not that this isn't an appropriate time, but it seems very telling that it's after a vote comes down that an issue is brought up.
In regards to the accusers, we gave you an opportunity to speak and lay forth everything without us objecting into your accusations. So we're going to respond to everything, and then it'll be discussed.
Parliamentary procedure has right of personal privilege, and so something that I said was being discussed, my name was mentioned, and so
Okay, as long as it only discusses.
Yeah, counterpoint. Yeah, just counterpoints. That's all.
Point of information. Point of personal privilege is if the room is hot, someone needs to use the restroom, it's too loud to hear things, and you can check in the standard code. Sorry for the interruption from the audience.
I've been to the Model United Nations conference and all sorts of different things, and there is right of personal privilege when somebody's personally named. And then also it is a counterpoint, so it's completely pertinent that I have a counterpoint to his points.
Do you have, Ryan, that document by you have what point of personal privilege entails?
I can tell
Personal
you.
privilege. Do you believe that if I said 4 sentences, it would cause more harm to this proceeding than wasting time?
No, but I would ask you to respect the fact that the commission didn't respond directly to individual complaints. We provided the same thing.
Did you want me to read?
Yes, please.
Okay, first charge is rule of order. Questions of personal privilege pertain to an individual member and usually relate to his or her rights, reputation, conduct, safety, or convenience as a member of the body.
She's talking about the validity of my claims, and so that I think
A person in the audience
reputation
is a member of the body.
A person in the audience is not a member of the body?
Correct.
Okay. So, we're not going to carry through with the response because the commission wasn't allowed to respond.
Well, would one of the members of the board yield to me like 1 minute or 45 seconds?
We're going to go ahead and move on because you were given ample time to discuss all this.
Out of order.
Excuse me?
You're out of order.
How so?
You're just talking. You have to address the chair.
Can we all pause for a second? They did give us the opportunity to go for a thing, the personal privilege thing, that's Robert's Rules of Order, but it is for these people, and we've been here forever. I want to go home, and this is being damaging to the process. Like, they've hurt us, let's let them do their thing. Antagonizing people that we're asking to make a fair, unbiased decision is not helpful, Jason. It's not.
I'm just gonna.
I would ask everybody. I would ask that the order be restored. We will not allow you to respond right now at this moment. If you want to hold off that comment until when the commission is done addressing, we'll do so. But now we'll discuss anything further about the conflict of interest for Tyler Smith being on this elections commission. Okay, I think it's necessary and appropriate that we vote on whether Tyler Smith is in a conflict of interest or not, because later tonight we'll be making rulings on other things, and we need to deem that he is.
I understood from earlier that it was a decision of the elections commissioner to decide whether or not a member of the elections commission was.
Well, in that case, I deem that he's unbiased.
But he said he was biased.
Yeah, he did. He said he's friends.
He said if I'm
nothing
friends with
about
all these
resentment.
people, then I am biased and whatever.
Wait,
he said
that
it himself.
bias can't be determined by who they associate with outside of the working environment.
And that motion was legitimized after Paul Mann, an administrator, interfered with the discussion.
I would ask you to respect.
Just let him do their thing.
This is garbage.
Let him do their thing.
Dude.
Alright, so at this point, we're going to move forward to the top of the initial complaints in regards to the Constitution, Article 7, Section C1. I'll read that first, and then we'll discuss it. This is referring to the Elections Commission deeming eligibility within 3 days. I read it once, so I will skip down to the portion where it says, the Elections Commission has number 3, school days to rule on the eligibility of a candidate after filing. And public notice to the effect that nominations are in order shall be posted on official bulletin boards and shall be published in the school newspaper at least 42 days prior to the election by the Elections Commission. At this point, I would like to recognize the fact that we are, under Articles of Incorporation, part of the university, and I'm going to read that, and this will be the precursor to my point that I'm going to make in addition to anybody else has on the Election Commission. This corporation shall conduct its operations in conformity with regulations established by the Board of Trustees of the California State University as required by the Education Code, Section 89900C, and shall be operated as an integral part of the university as required by the California Code of Regulations, Title 5, Section 42401. And I just want to bring to light the California State University Education Code in a document that I have printed off the CSU website. There's a section that refers to student discipline. It is expected that all students are enrolled for serious educational pursuits and that their conduct will preserve an atmosphere of learning. Enrolled students are subject to university authority, which includes the prerogative of dismissing students whose conduct is inimical to the aims of an institution of higher education. Rules of student conduct include the California Code of Regulations, Title 5, beginning at Section 41301. A student who violates university policies or regulations is subject to disciplinary action, which can result in warning, reprimand, probation, suspension, expulsion. Procedures under which the university may take disciplinary action against a student are specified by the Chancellor of California State University, Executive Order 628. These procedures are on file in the Office of Student Affairs or Dean of Students at the campuses. And what it cites here is the California Code of Regulations, Title 5, which can be found on the Humboldt State Academic Affairs website. And basically what I'm getting at is Jason, to be on disciplinary probation, although we don't know which one, he had to break one of those rules, which will bring me back to my next point, that the Elections Commission deemed that Jason Robo was eligible on April 9th. But since we have to follow, I'll read it again, in our Articles of Incorporation, the corporation shall conduct its operations in conformity with regulations established by the Board of Trustees. Meaning that we as the Elections Commission can are subject to what the administration of Humboldt State University has to say per candidate. So, although that the Elections Commission deemed him eligible, a superseding body deemed him ineligible because of disciplinary probation. So, on that account, I would urge that we are not in violation of Article 7, Section C.1, because we did do our duty by deeming him eligible, and it was a superseding body that deemed him ineligible. And yeah, that's it. Do other members of the commission have any further statements on Article 7, Section C.1? Patrick? Tyler?
No, you're right on, man.
No,
I didn't speak up. If nobody speaks, that's what you said.
As per section 13.01 of the Elections Code, in the event of a tie, or if a candidate for executive office fails to receive a required majority, a runoff election shall be held for the two candidates with the highest vote total. And I don't believe that the Elections Commission has fallen out of line with this code, because in the event of a tie, or if a candidate, Jason Robo was no longer a candidate, therefore he cannot participate in a runoff. Further?
And on the issue which someone raised earlier, Dina, I believe it was, when she stated then therefore a runoff should have occurred between Luke Ferrari and Crystal Cheney, the point that Tony Snow brought up earlier about the irregularities in double voting and therefore several people's votes being made ineligible, and the incredibly slim margin separating second and third place, I think made a revote necessary.
And that's what we deemed last meeting, because it could have been the 200 plus votes that were cast for Jason. The students deserve an opportunity to vote for a candidate, for a president that they feel is necessary outside of him, that is eligible.
I'll speak on it too, because it was my beginning motion. It wasn't, the reason why I made that motion wasn't principally because of the ineligibility reason. It was also the reason Tony Snow brought up. Those two reasons in conjunction, I felt a revote needed to be done. But I will admit, this is very confusing. This is uncharted waters. And at the same time that I hear people in this audience tell us to follow our code to a very specific point, they still say that this is uncharted waters and there are no specific codes about how to deal with the situation. And so I feel, and I'm happy with our decision, and I feel that it's the fairest thing to do to allow the students to revote for all eligible candidates. And now that we have this technicality fixed, right? It's fixed. There's no more double counting?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that this will be a much more fair election.
I'd like to just give a point of information, and that is that I just want to remind you all that in the last meeting you did bring up the option of a runoff between Crystal and Luke as one of the options that you could have motioned on, and with the information you were given in the meeting you did motion that there were two options, the runoff between Crystal and Luke and the revote, and you chose the revote, so it was discussed briefly last week.
And that is in the minutes that will be approved at tomorrow's meeting, so that will be a public record that we did discuss that.
Point of information, we just went through Article 7-C1 and now we're on 13-01. Is it appropriate for us to make a vote per article? Or like, are we going to say we don't agree or agree with Luke's complaint or with Jesse's complaint? Or are we going to cite the specific articles and vote yay or nay with these complaints? I'm a little confused as to how.
Since multiple people brought up the same infraction, I was just going to address that infraction.
Doesn't matter. I mean, this is a farce and a sham anyway, so I mean, what's the point?
Here.
It's not helping.
I think you're asking, do you want to vote after each code, piece of the code?
Yeah.
So you're asking, do you want to do it after each code, or do you want to do it after going through all the codes?
I I would go through each code, and if we find there is an issue with any of the codes, then yes, the legitimacy of the election couldn't be upheld. So we need to go through each code and make sure that procedure and that each one was followed. So I say that we go through. I'm saying that we will go through each code and discuss them, and until we come across one that we have fallen or an adequate complaint can't be made, then we will just proceed as is.
Thank you.
Does this mean that people attending can complain?
Right now, since the accusers had their time to speak, I addressed this a little bit earlier. I think you might have been out of the room, but the accusers had their opportunity to speak without any interference by the commission. So now the commission has an opportunity to speak and address all the accusations. There will be a time for. I do want to allow for a time for rebuttal to specific things that we might cite, and if a valid complaint can then be brought up, then perhaps. But so you would have to hold it until we're done going through each specific thing. If that answers your question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Election code 17.06.
Is this in
sorry,
number
this
1?
Is, yeah, this is still on Luke Ferrari's.
And Luke was number 2.
Yeah.
We moved on.
Yeah. I don't think it's stated since
We're doing it on a code by code basis.
Yeah, we're just doing it. Well, yeah, I'm just reading the codes that we're going to use.
Okay. However you need.
17.06. Failing an informal solution, the Elections Commission must take a ruling upon the complaint within 2 school days of the submission of the complaint. The first complaint was submitted at 10:30 p.m. on Friday evening, and the commission has 2 school days to do something. The Elections referred to 17.5. The Elections Commissioner may make an effort to resolve any and all complaints or disputes informally. I attempted via email to resolve the complaint informally, and then via an informal information session where we did not have quorum, and it was not posted 24 hours in advance with Gloria Romero, so no decisions were made upon that. I was still attempting to resolve it informally. At that point, when it wasn't resolved, we called this meeting, and so we still fall in line because I made my informal attempt within 2 school days. Any further?
No, I agree completely.
Gotcha.
So the language of it is that the Elections Commission must make a ruling upon a complaint within 2 school days of submission of the complaint. But I mean, that comes after the failing informal solution. Yeah.
This has been expedited, despite people's opinion that this has gone on a week. Yeah, it's gone on a week. There's been a weekend, which isn't a school day. Business cannot be conducted. Monday was the first school day after said complaint. Tuesday, an informal hearing was held. After that was deemed inefficient by whoever that is deemed by. An official meeting was called with 24 hours, which is now.
Right. I'm just making sure that we're covering all codes that were brought up. I checked. Does the commission see any other complaints that we haven't addressed before we move on to Jason's list of complaints?
No.
I think I only have 2.
Yeah, Luke's was very to the point and appreciated.
Seeing as the commission has already heard on the conflict of interest for 4.01 and 4.03, let me just ensure those are both conflict of interest.
He means for 4.01, he means 4.01 and conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So the conflict of interest is a separate.
So the elections we're discussing right now.
4.01.
Sorry. I'm looking at my papers. 4.01.
So what she meant is that in carrying out 4.01 there was a conflict of interest. I believe that was the complaint.
Oh.
No, I mean,
They both
your
have to do with the
interpretation.
conflict of interest claim, because of who is appointing,
Yeah.
and then the conflict of interest statement.
Okay, so let's discuss them in elections then. The elections, 4.01, the elections commission shall consist of the elections commissioner, 3 members appointed by the AS president, and 2 members appointed by the legislative vice president. The AS general manager or designee shall serve as an advisor of the commission. Seeing it as their duty for both the AS president and legislative vice president to appoint people at large who have submitted interest into being partaking in the elections commission, I can't possibly see how any conflict of interest could arise, considering the fact that the elections commission was appointed before the elections began. Um, 4.03, the elections commission shall maintain an impartial attitude towards the election and the election issue. I've gone, personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I haven't seen any exact circumstances, and nobody has brought that to light, where any member of the elections commission has not maintained an impartial attitude. No specific instances, and since the burden does lie upon the accuser, there's nothing more that we can do than just take it over. Dismiss it. Thank you. Section 4.04. The commission shall not campaign in any election, nor publicly support any campaign or cause in an election they're administering. I think the one point that Jason brought up about this was the fact that Rachel Rodriguez had something on her Facebook. Is that what you're referencing at this point, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. Since she's
she
not
actually sent out an email too for supporting Luke for the re-election as well.
okay, since she is not a member of the commission, she is entitled to her own opinion.
It says members of AS groups or programs and like staff, administrators. I think that applies to pretty much
funds.
a lot of
It's
people.
talking about the funds.
I thought we were talking about section 404. That doesn't say anything about AS council
Well,
members.
one of them does. So.
4.04 doesn't. That's where we're on.
I think it talks about AS funded programs.
Yeah.
I think that's what it says.
His complaint, as stated on in this, is that about Tyler Smith's position on the elections commission is a means of campaigning
Oh, okay.
against him.
Yeah, the 404, I won't mention Rachel in there, so sorry.
Sorry, I misread. His explanation was Tyler Smith's position on the Elections Commission is a means of campaigning against myself, a candidate, and in support of the cause, anybody but Robo, underground campaign. Again, you would have to provide some evidence, physical evidence, that Tyler was part of this campaign.
Well, you deny his conflict of interest, so I don't even know why you're even talking about it, but whatever. It's part of the
That's a
premise.
good point. We should move on if this is part of conflict of interest, which we already dealt with.
Elections Code 4.10. The Commissioner shall supervise an orderly voting process and a prompt and accurate tallying of the results. No, your vote total is of public knowledge. It wasn't printed up because you were no longer a candidate. Therefore, they weren't necessary, but we can provide that information. I openly provided the fact that in that vote that was deemed inappropriate, you were the second vote getter. So, but since you can't be a candidate, it no longer applies.
You don't have to address me. I think you're supposed to be talking to your people because you don't seem to want to involve me much right now. So please don't talk to me or I won't talk back.
Good point. Executive Memorandum P07-01, minimum academic qualifications for student office holders.
I'm sorry, I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, please.
And I guess this is, well, no, we sort of skipped one, but we had touched on it earlier. It's the one previously between 410 and Executive Memorandum. The AS Constitution, Article 7, Section C.1. Code states, candidates... Yeah, that's the 3 days thing. But I just, just in general, notwithstanding disciplinary hearings, that stuff supersedes everything. There are people on this campus who are here to set rules and to ensure a minimum standard from all students for all their involvement in everything. And that has to do with this, and that has to do with everything. The Elections Commission did their job in 3 days, and we stated that. The ineligibility, it just needs to be said, there was a disciplinary hearing withstanding all of this that could have been handled prior, was not, and now has caused a lot of this. Go for it.
The same standard needs to be for all people, as he previously pointed out.
Somebody who held office was on financial probation, and that was okay. If probation for one is okay at one point in time in the year, they...
Please direct your concerns at the Office of Student Affairs.
Okay.
There's no point. Like, this whole thing is being made up and fabricated, and it has no logic to it. So there is no point to try and use logic.
You have traded your voice for an authority voice that supersedes all this. So, as many teachers have said, which gives me plenty of ground to say this, it's bullshit. Bullshit.
I'd like to ask you to leave if you're going to use that kind of language, and if people are going to keep referring to this as a farce and using swear words and
Well, I
all
mean,
that...
does the administration pay you? Are you guys off to a vacation? I mean, like, what's the deal?
Point of order, this isn't...
I have all kinds of documents about illegal activity in this organization, so handle your business. Do this for
we are...
You know as much as anybody.
Point of order. This is just inappropriate.
You guys aren't using anything real.
Yeah, you do. You guys have nothing to validate. Like, seriously?
No,
nothing to
I'm
validate
going to
any
have
of
to
your
ask
code
people to
violations.
respect the commission.
We're going to leave not because you want us to.
You are gutting the student voice for the administration that's completely screwing us all over, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Refrain from speaking out of order or leave.
Destroying the AS.
What, you're going to have the cops come shoot myself or something? You're going to have me hauled out of the
represent
building?
yourself with some form of dignity by following the rules.
How
that
is
are
this
set
He's
forth.
alleged VP. He doesn't have any legitimacy. You guys didn't give a shit about any of the
Point of
comments that
order.
were made today.
Point of order.
And why'd you need extra 2 days so you can consult a lawyer to dig down for more reasons why you
Point of
fucked me
order.
over?
If you're going to speak out of line, I ask you to leave.
And fuck me, not just me over, but the whole student body. I don't give a shit. Turn and call the cops.
Let her. They'll probably shoot you and they can all apply.
I would ask Jesse that you leave first for speaking out of order.
This is a public meeting.
Okay.
We cannot do
you must
business
abide
because
by
you
the rules
know
set forth by
that
the
you
commission.
campaigned actively against
Excuse me.
Jason. It's a conflict
Excuse me.
of interest, and you know it. And you talked
I
about
will
integrity,
ask-
and you're lying.
I will ask you to hold off what you're saying.
Just have a meeting and let them, if they need to talk, just talk over them.
Sounds great.
In regards to the executive memorandum, minimum academic qualifications, an exact quote: all student office holders must be matriculated, regularly enrolled in a degree-seeking program at HSU, must maintain a minimum overall grade point average each term as described below, must be in good standing, and must not be on probation of any kind.
Said holder, not runner.
Said. Explicitly says. Elections Code, Section 4.11. The Commissioner shall immediately hear all infractions, quarrels, disputes, or disagreements involving campaigns, elections, and refer them deemed necessary to the Elections Commission after the ruling. I spoke with Crystal Cheney after Jason Robo brought it to my attention that he felt she was doing some false campaigning. That was the informal resolution to the complaint he filed, which he was fine with at that time. No further complaints were filed after that in regards to Crystal Cheney. Elections Code Section 5.03. Elections Commissioner has the authority to remove anyone on the commission who action seeks that improperly affect the outcome of the election, which Tyler Smith has sought to do.
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest we discussed already.
5.303.
Jason Robo didn't bring forth any evidence that says he's exactly in conflict of interest. Election Code Section 10.04. My campaign materials were cleaned up within 48 hours following the close of the election. Upon collection, the majority of stakes were missing, mangled, or knocked over. I had a similar experience when collecting the signs for the voting. We cannot police the vandalism that's taken part by students, and it's just an invalid complaint. Elections Code Section 10.05. Candidates are responsible for the actions of the campaign committee, whether authorized by the candidate or not. Thus, Cheney should be held accountable for the actions of her associates. I discussed with her, like I said, after the first complaint filed, there was no further complaint filed with Jason, no follow-up complaint. Therefore, I can't take any action if there was no complaint. Elections Code Section 10.07. University staff, which includes AS body members and administration, interference in the voting process. I'm going to actually read from here because just to make sure that it's quote. University staff shall not coerce, manipulate, or attempt to influence students in a voting process. This includes referendums, initiatives, recalls, and amendments to the Constitution. Again, since the burden lies upon the accuser, I was personally not manipulated by anything. I've done everything on accord to the Elections Code and the Constitution. We have advisors in place to advise us because we are students acting, Steve.
And, you know, it may seem inescapable to this certain candidate, but the impeachment trial, the impeachment hearing, and the process that the current AS went through has nothing to do with this election. Please distance your thoughts from the two things.
Elections Code 17.12. All complaints of violations of the Elections Code must be presented in writing to the Elections Commissioner. The complaint must state the who, what, when, where, and how of the violation. And I guess he, I don't know why he cited that one. States clearly that the disqualifications of candidates in elections must be initiated with sufficient evidence that violates. Okay, so he's saying that the candidates in election must be initiated with sufficient evidence. So when we take action, there has to be significant evidence. And the significant evidence was the executive memorandum handed down from the Student Affairs Office.
I'd also like to note that he uses the word disqualify when it's not a disqualification, it's actually an ineligibility. So just FYI in language.
And the final that he quotes is 13.01, which we have already previously addressed. Please.
At this time, because you guys do have an action item, so this one's probably like, move to take no action on such and such. If that's what you guys do, or if you guys make another motion.
Okay.
I was under the impression there was room for public comment at the end of this, and I was waiting for that.
Yes. Does the commission have anything to say in regards to this?
Does the commission have the ability to respond to public comment after, or is it us, public comment, and then we vote?
We'll move to a vote after the public comment, because that'll be the rebuttal time.
Okay.
One thing I would like to say, again, is please separate this situation. If you have a problem with Jason Robo being deemed ineligible, that is an issue for the Student Affairs Office. We are the Elections Commission, and we're charged with administering elections under the facts that we have. We cannot administer the elections under suspicion or speculation of something happening or that something happened. We have to deal with the facts that we have as the Elections Commission. So please separate yourself from that from being upset about Jason being deemed ineligible and the process that the Election Commission now must do to administer a fair and equal election to get the next student president into office. At this point, we'll take public comments and rebuttal to what we have to say. Please make them relevant and not just insults to us, regardless of your personal
Concise.
Yeah, sure. I'd just like to say that I'm disappointed with what you guys decided, but you're the election commission, so I'll respect it. And I just would like to point out one thing that I kind of remembered that this isn't like a personal attack or anything, but when the motion was originated and then it was seconded, it was mentioned that it was only seconded because he wanted another time to speak. And that's like a minor thing, it's not a big deal, and I probably shouldn't even mention it. But basically, thank you for your time.
Jesse.
My frustration is that there's all kinds of documents at this table that I can guarantee students to not just go find on their own. These are things that were given to students to use to achieve a certain goal. You guys have things all set up. The commission was supposed to, in a fair and unbiased manner, listen, hear the complaints, and make a decision. You guys were all prepped. You had your little notes, had everything all ready to go. And my biggest thing that I've said over and over again is that there is not one person sitting at this table who has ever showed any documentation having anything in the world to do with student elections. It's fabrication. There is no relevance. Every address, every concern that was made had to do specifically for our AS Constitution and Code. The entire reason I'm upset, and I would think that every one of you would be upset, is that our Code and Constitution is a way and means for the student voice to be heard on campus. This process was not done in an unbiased manner. It's ludicrous the way it's happened. We are supposed to be working on behalf of students, not the administration of this school. You all were here in these meetings. You all are here when we have had several administrators coming and going from our offices in AS for months. Several people here are fully aware that a specific plan was to have his hearing the day before. This was crafted by administrators, and now here, yet again, we have students who should be supporting one another, fighting against each other. We're all tired, we're all beat down. I don't think anybody has handled this situation in the best way. I definitely think there are several people, specifically two of the candidates, that have handled it in much better ways. But it's extremely frustrating that the whole issue here was about student elections, and y'all were already ready, had it before you heard anything, before anybody had an opportunity to speak. Y'all had your notes, knew what you were going to say, knew what you were going to do. It seems completely inappropriate, and there's been no documentation having anything to do with elections, except for our Code and Constitution, which I do feel has basically, I'll just say, been crapped on today, dismissed, acted like it has no relevance or meaning. And I think it's very frustrating that you all have mentioned that you're all seniors and you're gone and you're leaving a very destructed, dismembered, unempowered student body and associated students. And no matter what happens, let's say it was going to be, the thing was supposed to be between Luke and Jason, and Luke would have won, and now this way Luke would win now, or whoever. No matter who takes this office, we're jacked. We've already had personal feelings going on, and you have all set us up to fail, and I hold you each in your professional job and duties 100% responsible for that. And you can laugh all you want to and talk about being professional.
Tara and then Tony.
I first want to thank the Elections Commission for doing this. I know it was an arduous task, and I think you guys all did your job to the best of your abilities. I also really want to thank each and every single one of you for reading over the complaints prior to this meeting and coming prepared with the documents necessary to address this in a public forum so that all students have the information available. I think that was a very professional way to address this, and I really respect the fact that you guys went above and beyond to do what was required of you as responsible members of the Elections Commission. And I would hope that only at our associate students meetings, all members came that prepared with additional information to support the causes and support the complaints and support the needs of students. I also would like to just further express the fact that, as all of you have known, that the Elections Commission had no bearing on Jason Robo's probation, and in fact, as with all probation hearings, a pre-hearing was held, an additional hearing was addressed, and as towards his student rights, he did have a maximum of 10 days before the hearing was mandatory, supposed to be held once notification, and all students have the right to request a hearing earlier than that 10-day time if it's deemed necessary and more effective to fit their scheduling purposes. And so I just want to lay that out there for you guys, but I really want to thank you guys for dealing with a situation that was going to be rough from the start. And on the flip side to the previous comment, I actually think your guys' behavior has hopefully set the stage for a very strong behavior for council next year to thoroughly evaluate codes, come with resources, and interpret them in the best reasonable ways that you can, because that's why we appointed you to your positions. So thank you very much for dealing with this.
Tony. I just wanted to say that as a dues-paying member of the association and former, elected president of the association, I've sat through some tension-filled meetings, and I really appreciate the time you guys have taken to hear every single side, especially you, Keith, to allow for everyone to speak, probably beyond anything that I would have ever been able to handle. And I just want to say again, as a dues-paying member of the association, a voting member, that I completely trust any outcome that may result from this, and appreciate you guys' time and effort into this.
Right. Okay, so I'll make it get this quick. Again, definitely thanks for preparing. I've been chair of a few meetings recently where some people hadn't prepared everything, and it is important to do that, so good. Coming out of this meeting, I think there's two things. First of all, the biggest piece of evidence that I see here after listening to all the arguments made today is that the main reason that a redo of the presidential election was needed specifically has to do with the technical issues that you decided on last week. So regardless of all the other stuff, there is reason to recall for that for the presidential election, specifically based on those technical issues, and everything else falls to the wayside. Now, at this point in time, as you guys go through and you're going to do your action items, you're going to go down through each one of these complaints and decide how you act on it. It's the prerogative of your board, based on the information that you've seen today and the arguments that you've heard, whether or not Jason Robo should have been on that ballot based on the information that you had from Jason and based on the information that you had from the staff. And at the end of the day, you guys are the Elections Commission. You were appointed to this commission by individuals who were elected to Associated Students to serve their job, and per our code, it is your final decision on how those complaints be made. So I would ask you, each and every one of you, as you go through each of these action items, deal with these complaints, think everything over, and make the decision based on that evidence that you feel is correct.
Further public comments? Alright, we'll now move to a vote on whether action should be taken on codes and the validity of their violation.
So what is there a motion on the table?
Yeah, one of us needs to make a motion.
We need to make a motion. I motion to declare all complaints invalid and to withhold the Elections Commission vote of last Friday, whatever that date was. Uphold.
Will you repeat that one more time?
I move to declare all complaints invalid and withhold and uphold the Elections Commission vote of last Friday, date
April
25th.
Yield the floor to Ryan for.
My question was, did you guys have? I haven't seen your. Do you have different action items for each of those complaints?
We did. Yeah. We grouped them at the beginning.
And it's still listed as one action item with subsets of it.
Okay.
It's like, you mean like old business and then there's 4? Is that what you're saying?
You want to?
It does say action items for each specific item, but we did make a motion at the beginning to discuss everything and then vote on it.
Okay, so that action item is already placed on the floor through that motion, and that now you're basically making a decision on that action item, on whether or not to take action.
Right.
So should the motion be whether or not to take no action rather than declare them invalid, rather than we'll take no action?
Sure, wording, think about it, say it if you got it, don't ask me a question, because I just made a statement.
As I understand the action item is like, say you wanted to take action on those complaints, you would actually move to accept that complaint, and then at that point you accepted that complaint, you would take action. So since you have an action item, you can move either to take action on those complaints or do not take action, or to accept the complaint or not to accept the complaint. And if you accept it, then as a board, you're kind of obligated to take action based on the complaint that you accept.
So we're voting not to accept.
So, yes.
So the motion should be reworded to, I move to, somebody have
Point of information. Your specific motion, because of the action item read, you would say, and I'll say you agree with these, I move to review and take action of the official complaint submitted by Jesse Hughes, Luke Ferrari, and Dina and Jason Robo, since you guys grouped them all. And then you'd make that motion, you'd accept that motion since you had a discussion, and then you would vote after you've made the motion to either vote yay, which would be, well, you have to accept these. So you'd take action. You'd make a motion to amend to take action. So you make your motion to accept these. Then you make a motion to amend with a specific action.
So then if they actually choose to not accept them, they don't have to take any action, right?
You guys should move to accept the action, and if you don't want to take action...
Well, we already did at the very beginning, to even be able to discuss...
Okay, you guys want me to go back?
Please do.
Okay. I have a motion to take 5 minutes bathroom break. That's what I'm looking for.
It's really not this complex.
Motion
made a motion.
By,
Yeah, could have rolled with it.
No, no one seconded it, so it's still going.
I have a motion by Smith with a second by Diamond to move to hear all complaints before taking action. So that's what you have, is that you've heard all complaints. You still have 4 action items on your agenda, and none of them you've taken action on. All you've done is heard all the complaints. So
since we grouped them, can we make a motion to...
You can make a motion to
Did you actually take no action? No action.
No action on all of them.
Yeah.
So does somebody want to make a motion to take no action on all?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Okay.
make a motion to take no action on the 4 action items.
take no action.
4 action items as submitted by Jesse Hughes, Luke Ferrari, Dina
Hagounian?
H-A-I-G-O-U-N-I-A-N, and Jason Robo.
No.
So,
Does somebody second?
Second.
So my state of mind is not also the best judgment. I just wanted to...
Not anymore, though.
Thank you.
Today's my last day.
I don't think that's for me. That's
I know you don't think it's a valid.
I don't.
And that's fine. But I mean, you're
opinion.
going to constitutions like that too. But then, and then actually, like honestly, before, like when I wasn't on it, and I was doing that too.
Part of AS before. I've been part of situations before. I've been made to blow my
You just say fire hydrant.
I have. And I'm not going to say no, I kind of always,
Hopefully we'll have time
and
for
maybe I'm just me, but I always
Oh yeah.
Someone has to start at 2 a.m. buy some beer.
Maybe
We're not rushing anything through.
I got my
dad was always been
brought some tea.
One of the first things you did, oh, how are you doing?
I
Oh my god. Oh, I was like, oh my god. I should not be fucking with this guy right now. I'm so used to this, like. I just told him I was picking
And I totally understand. I mean, there's that line that, you know, I read into a lot too of like people
got
are
some type
all
of
friends now. I work really hard to get
so like his nails are all like
on the professional side, you told them what they can and can't do, but
Chancellor.
Oh, that's right. People are like,
Yeah, it's always the known thing is never shake his hand. Oh, I've actually
elbows.
That's my
Elbows.
recommendation.
I did. He's like, how are you doing, Chancellor? And I'm like, I'm
It is
good.
tricky, and I, you know,
The whole McCain thing.
but you know.
Yeah, I just didn't
too. Like, I also
really cared that
Look at his hand.
And that's also
I don't want it.
Yeah, up close. I did, because like the very first time I did that whole wow, like you know, look at it like I did really like pointed out my face. I was like,
that's okay. I feel like I overstepped my bounds there, and I totally
You would think it
understand
has that much money.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the summer and then.
Well, actually, I might come back and live with my roommate or my next door neighbor.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you were. I was, but no, it was just a general issue. But she's never received a letter from or job recommendation.
So, this will be in the lumberjack probably like next week or something. Maybe.
I should know too. I should. But you know, the semester's not over yet.
Right.
And like, and you know.
If you'd asked it of me, she would. Well, she thought it was kind of funny, kind of wish she'd given me
Yeah,
a
hopefully it'll be
recommendation.
an issue.
So do I. She didn't. I wish I got it. But, you know, I didn't either. So,
I like
but
that.
yeah,
I should say that.
I mean, that didn't actually happen. So.
I'll remember it.
Well,
I'll use it.
I guess that leads into some integrity situation.
You what?
Is that I guess that retains some, that like gives a little bit more integrity.
I guess my biggest.
Did you see that before I called you, Jason?
You know, it's just that, like.
Well, I got a call from my friend Shannon, whose comment I read earlier, and she got one of those, early bird ones they put in like the day before, so that was pretty cool.
Some of those emails that went out.
Oh no, like I don't think he went into a lot of points.
Well, I
Like,
didn't
I
get a
think
lot
it should
of
have been
the-
necessary
I
instead of like more details on myself.
Yeah, it's pretty short. It was just like
But yeah, I thought like one of the things that's crucial is like I wasn't the first one to complain about this whole deal.
We don't know
And it's like you.
Oh, he didn't even say that, did he?
Yeah, he didn't say anything about that. So I don't know, but I mean, it's kind of like parliamentary procedure, right of personal privilege. He's already talked about me, so I should be able to write an editorial and speak it up, or put my own points that I think are relevant. So we'll see what happens with it. I think they got to be in by like Monday or something.
You know what I mean? And that's just reality. You know, want somebody who's going to be able to focus.
I know, and I probably did. I shouldn't have said that to Carrie, but I mean.
Oh no, I read it.
I just.
Cool.
You know,
you also didn't know the same.
Mission.
I was in that week as well.
Puffin,
So there's
poisonous nicotine.
I should have said, but I had also never.
You still have your boots on.
You know,
Yeah, just getting back from work. My last day.
Right prior to
I worked for California Pharmacy.
things, the email that you got in which
Laughing time is
the activity was on, there were multiple
Secretary.
So actually, most of that email was incorrect and
So are
misquoted.
you going to be around next semester?
well, then I appreciate
You're graduating, but.
I tried to avoid doing it, but as soon as I figured it out, I had to just be like, dude, darling.
I definitely appreciate it.
I've never tried to hide it. Oh, nice. You guys are going on tour.
Give me a go, you jugglers, clowns, I'll get whatever you need, man.
The reason I said you shouldn't be laughing was
I'm not gonna blame you, but it's your fault.
Okay, does he drive, like, he tries to be on.
Hey,
I swear I
can you
can't
go see what Rob is?
Yeah. Beamers, and that's why we have that. I
I didn't mean.
Vehicles across the state of California, and our president was selected as one of them. And that's what paid for the hydrogen fueling station. So like the state paid for them everything.
So what's up, Mello? Is that a nickname or what?
It says,
Mello is that
shoe size 11-ish.
Oh, you can totally feel it.
Oh, height 6'6".
I've always been looking at the reason of it. I'm trying to be a mellow guy.
It's that first part about $100,000.
I was for California Public Education.
What size shoe are you if you don't?
What if you were over my office?
I guess with the amount
We work with we got Fred a lot.
Yeah, well, we're the archaeology aspect of it. So we get like $1.5 million contract to go out and do sites.
The only time I ever dealt with that is
Happy baby.
We were moving a baby species on Indian Island.
Oh yeah.
And,
It's not a mountain.
we had to figure it out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The real scary thing what they do is they yeah, I'm more than sure you would.
How are you holding up? Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel bad for all these. Yeah, for these guys.
It's supposed to be the QSC meeting right now.
Oh, I hope they understand. I hope that this will turn out well.
Yeah.
What did you say? QB?
QSU, the Queer Student Union.
Queer SU.
Yes.
That's what I missed.
My favorite is when I say Queer Student Union, and they're like, the Christian Union, huh?
They're like,
Not quite.
Did you email them or text them or something to let them know?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You guys going to Pint Night tonight?
My
Everett's
supposed to be a nice boy point here.
supposed to have a chem exam tomorrow. I have done zero studying. He's trying to fit in, not trying, he is. He's fitting in one more to help people out.
Yeah.
In hopes that if they get all the little ones, then the final they won't have to stress over.
Yeah.
I'm stressing over all of them though, of course, because I missed a bunch of freaking class. I'm just wondering, like...
Alright.
So Keith, is there... Stop. Your tag is up.
Welcome back. Is there what?
There's no more room for public comment? Probably.
Well, we can address public comment. We're going to address all the complaints that have been made.
Okay. Okay.
Isn't that a pee?
Oh, I peed.
Oh.
I got a decatheter in.
I'm Nikki, Sophia.
Thanks.
So we're supposed to share a room together. Okay.
You weren't offended by that comment I made at Stanford,
Okay.
No, not at all. No, absolutely not.
It's like you didn't have to solve that.
That was fun.
I guess having like, a 3.86 GPA and multiple
You gonna be in the Tavola Gardens next year too? Next
multiple
semester?
things
Yeah,
coming up is,
I love that part.
it's
Yeah.
just
Well, I
passing
love
out
it
condoms
because of
and
its
stuff.
location.
I just wish we had a patio.
Yeah. It'd be nice if we grow plants.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Tiffany's never received a letter back.
This will be my last month. Yep.
It's like we're gonna reconvene at 7 p.m., which means it is so late.
What are you doing tomorrow?
How much we're playing Frisbee golf
Getting
today?
ready. I'm going down to Brooklyn for a job interview.
We have
How you doing, Rob?
in the morning to do an interview.
Okay. What are you doing this weekend? Like, I'm doing a lot of laundry and some homework.
Okay, because I gotta leave right now.
Probably
Yeah.
laundry.
Yeah.
But
Just
tonight.
Can you just want to brief me on what happened to the rest of the
Yeah.
meeting?
But I don't want to
Probably
play
do that.
next Tuesday.
Alright.
Yeah.
The only time you $1.99 laundry.
When is that?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Really? Where?
City.
It's 2 days. It's that cheap.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
Like $250
like,
over.
So, wait, what was
campus
the
I have a meeting at
Is that that's just wash, right? What about dry?
Dries like
Dries like
Dude, yes.
I appreciate you staying
I
late.
can go to Ingemar, I'm a woman.
Do your job.
No, you can't. The president of the Ingemar is a woman.
I know, I'm joking. I'm joking. There's also not a party there with robes and candles and a cult and marshmallows. It's a joke, running joke. Ha ha.
Well, yeah, there is. You would know
Not
that.
that I'm invited to.
Well, I was invited last time they had.
I remember that Pictionary.
Why ever invited to that shit?
Patrick and I am. That's it.
Because I'm a woman. I know. There you go. Damn.
Congratulations
Thank you.
on your award.
Thank you.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I saw that too. It was good.
So there's no
It was
more
a nice speech.
opportunity.
That was about one of the nicest speeches I've ever heard anybody give anybody.
I wasn't
She
sure
listed
if
like 8 amazing qualities. She called you like a guru and a bunch of other super nice things.
That speech almost made me cry.
Yeah.
And it's totally true. It's just about like one of the first things I ever said. Yeah, we kind of
Can't make me do
our
that.
first year.
It's funny.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, we did not get along my first year.